All right, so the disclaimer is that this is not news. This is actually general knowledge history that I went sort of looking for, and I found it interesting, and I thought I should share with you. So this is what happened. So you know that the US has the NFL, which happened this weekend, and they have a big performance, and Bad Bunny performed completely in Spanish. And for those of you who don't know him, he's a very successful contemporary artist, sings in Spanish, he's Puerto Rican. And what happened was there was like a MAGA reaction to this, or the right-wing, American right-wing reaction to his performance because it was entirely in Spanish. And television host Megyn Kelly was speaking to Piers Morgan, and she said it was a giant middle finger to all Americans because we're an English-speaking country. And he sang in Spanish, even though I think the numbers are like 40 million people in America who actually speak Spanish. Now, during the performance, apparently Bad Bunny also said, God bless America, and then went on to call out the names of all Latin American countries in the Western Hemisphere and Canada. So apparently Canada is very excited. But the message and the language of the fact that he dedicated the music to immigrants, effectively, he said people who've left their homes and come looking for work and shelter and safety and dignity, all of this really got a reaction from the American right wing. And you know how it is right now, everything gets pigeonholed, you're either left or right. But it actually made me ask the question, because my understanding was people in Puerto Rico are Americans. So if they are Americans, why is this reaction happening? If Bad Bunny is American, why is this reaction happening? And why are they still treated differently? And so I started looking into the relationship of Puerto Rico and the USA. And I thought it was fascinating. And there's a helicopter flying over my head, which is happening a lot these days. We'll let it pass. Okay. So I thought that the relationship between Puerto Rico and the USA was very interesting. And that is what I have put down. So this video is actually about, is Bad Bunny American? So I know it's really random, but give it a listen and give me a comment in the comment section later if you thought it was interesting information. So this is what I found, right? In 1898, there was a Spanish-American war. And up until then, for 4 centuries, Puerto Rico was a Spanish colony, which is why they all speak Spanish. During that war, America actually won, and there was a Treaty of Paris, and then they took over Puerto Rico. The people of Puerto Rico were not given an option. It stopped being Spanish, it started becoming US territory. Now, so if it's US territory, it's not a state, what does that mean? Are they US citizens? Apparently, yes, because in 1917 there was an act passed in US Congress that gave citizenship to people born in Puerto Rico. So they have passports that are US, they can move freely, they can work, they can live wherever they want. They can serve in the US Armed Forces, and I understand they serve in large numbers. And so there's no sort of legal ambiguity about whether or not they are citizens of the US. Then why are they treated differently? Because it was never incorporated into a state. It remained a territory. Hawaii, for example, was incorporated, made a state. And so now the citizens of Hawaii are the same as all of the other Americans. But in this case, it was not. And the distinction came from a series of Supreme Court rulings. Effectively, the Constitution applies only partially to US territories. So the US controls Puerto Rico but does not give them full American democracy. So for example, Puerto Ricans cannot vote for the president. They cannot vote for a representative in Congress. They have no influence on federal laws. And they have one non-voting delegate that they send to the House of Representatives and 0 senators. So the American government controls the trade, the immigration, the minimum wage, disaster relief, bankruptcy law, federal funding, but they have no representatives at all in the government. Remember, this is America, the supposed flag bearer of democracy for the world. And obviously, by this definition, the people of Puerto Rico do not enjoy self-governance and democracy. So it sounds like colonialism to me, right? It sounds like an occupation. The Puerto Rican people use the American dollar. They cannot sign any international trade agreements of their own. They are subject to US shipping laws, which make imports for them more expensive. And they have no sovereignty in foreign policy. So they cannot actually have any sort of interaction with the rest of the world as an individual entity. And yet they are often, culturally and politically excluded from the idea of America. And, in crises that, Hurricane Maria that happened, they were treated peripherally, and they felt like they were not given the same kind of attention that an American, state would have been given. And so a lot of people in Puerto Rico question this whole colonialism in practice idea that they have. So Puerto Ricans effectively are American citizens by US law, but they are denied full American democratic rights. So culturally, Puerto Rico is Latin American because look at its location. Spanish is the dominant language. Their identity is fundamentally Caribbean as well. Politically, though, it belongs to the United States. And this is where the Bad Bunny backlash actually comes from. People say, why is a Puerto Rican artist performing at an American event? What they're actually saying is, we don't really accept Puerto Ricans as Americans, or we're resisting acknowledging it as part of America because the NFL is Americans, but Puerto Ricans are not. And that's where that discomfort is actually coming from. So I went to look at, does America have other such territories other than Puerto Rico, where there are 3.2 million people? It's the largest territory that they have. There's Guam in the Western Pacific, which is also a territory, the US Virgin Islands in the Caribbean, the Northern Mariana Islands, I hope I said that right, in the Pacific Ocean, the American Samoa in the South Pacific, also a territory of the US, and the one, remember, former territory that became a state was Hawaii, which in 1959, it was a territory that was annexed in 1898, apparently, around the same time as Puerto Rico, but in 1959, it became the 50th state in full citizenship, and voting rights were given to all of its citizens. Now, interestingly, a lot of Americans are unaware of this status, and they rarely apparently learn about it in school, and that is where all of this actually comes from. Apparently in Puerto Rico, initially there was a resistance and, to a sort of American control, and they wanted to break away. There was a nationalist movement. It's a long story. Fundamentally, the bottom line under it is that America was just too powerful for any sort of movement that came out of Puerto Rico. It's a really small country. And also, bottom line is, this current setup allows the people of Puerto Rico to live in America, to have an American passport, to work there. So the advantages short term are far outweigh any of the long term benefits of actually fighting for any sort of independence, and that is why that breakaway sort of movements fizzled out. Geographically, though, it's in a really interesting location between North and South America. It's major shipping lines, undersea cables. There are lots of very important things, and during the Second World War and the Cold War, it was sitting right at that point that America needed to be, and to put all of its sort of military establishments. So that became really important territory. So actually Puerto Rico has housed a US Navy and an Air Force facility, training grounds, intelligence stations, a logistic hub, it remains a surveillance location, so it becomes really important, and that is one of the reasons why America also wants to hold on to it. So fundamentally, Puerto Rico offers the US strategic, military, economic leverage, geopolitical leverage as well, and in return, they get looked after by the American government. So that's the real answer of not Bad Bunny is in fact American. On paper he is, culturally he may not be, and the people, the sort of white right-wing people in America who believe that country music is the real music of America, and perhaps are ignoring the history that came from before they arrived on the boats from Europe, that America actually, or the USA as it's called today, actually belonged to the Native Americans, the indigenous people who lived in that land, who were simply slaughtered for being too nice to the white people who came on the boats from Europe. So actually, honestly, America can never really establish any language as its own language because it wiped out the languages that existed really, that belonged to that land. And it's interesting that they're pushing back so much. This was a land based entirely on immigration. The whole idea of the Statue of Liberty, that is the first thing that you see when you approached that country on boat, on a ship, and it said, "Bring us your huddled masses." And those huddled masses came by troves and, large groups in order to work, and through their work and hard work and their ingenuity, they built your nation, and now you've decided it's yours and you don't want them anymore. That applies to everybody except the Puerto Ricans, who you went to their shores and took over their country. and perhaps that gives them even more right to hold space, culturally and otherwise in America right now. But that's just me, right? This is just me reading about what's happening in the world. I know it's not current news, or it's not something that should stay on top, but leave me a comment in the comment section if you believe that America, that sort of waves the flag so boisterously for democracy, should learn some of its own lessons once in a while.